Hey, and welcome back to Dead Key Developer. Today we're doing something a bit different other than configuring, writing an application or developing a game. Today's one is a bit more along the lines of the CCNP enterprise, which is what I'm currently working my way towards. And now a crucial part of actually your studies, besides just learning the video content and reading, is the labbing. Now, I found that an issue I typically have with labbing is my system resources. Now, if you're like me and you don't have a high-end spec PC, or if you don't have, for example, a budget to necessarily afford to upgrade your current PC, then and you're a learner like myself and you want to learn, then we have to do away with technologies such as GNS3. When you've passed your CCNA and move on, practically packet tracer is no longer usable. So what's best rather to work on in these times is either GNS3, which we're working away from now, or if you do have the system resources, you can go ahead and use GNS3. But that would require you to actually purchase images from Cisco in order to import the templates to your GNS3. It also would require you to download images either to run it back-end on Windows or to have VirtualBox installed or another sort of hypervisor such as VMware, where you would have to install Linux onto it and then basically get GNS3 installed from your App Store. So instead of going through that rigorous admin overhead, taking up a lot of your time, at which time is a rare commodity these days, we can make use of the Cisco DevNet Sandbox. And that's primarily what this video is about. So I just wanted to give you a couple of steps whereby you actually log into the DevNet portal, the Sandbox portal, and you're able to create different labs using CML, which is your Cisco modeling labs. And it's just a lot more efficient using your internet connection than depending on your local system resources. It also, in terms of your labbing as well, depending on which program you're using, but it could also elongate the times at which you're trying to run a node, for example, or trying to keep auto-idling processes on GNS3. So without further ado, let's move on to our Sandbox environment. So what you're going to do is you'll use your preferred browser of choice. Mine is Google Chrome. We're going to Google DevNet Sandbox. From there, we're going to go to our developer.cisco.com site under Sandbox, select the first hyperlink, and that should take us to our landing page. So basically, depending on the concentration which you're currently studying towards, CCNP has many different disciplines, such as the CCNP Enterprise, which is your networking, CCNP Colab, your CCNP Security, which is what I'm currently working towards, and your CCNP Data Center, CCNP Cloud. But for now, we're just going to be selecting our networking tab, as I'd like to demonstrate once we've got our DevNet lab up and running, our Sandbox up and running, basically how to configure DMVPN, and possibly in a later video show you how to implement IPsec on that as well. So you can go ahead, select networking, it'll open up a new tab. What it'll do is it'll give you an overview of the different sandboxes available. The different sandboxes available you can actually go into. They'll have pre-existing environments deployed with DNA Center with different tutorials on how to use DNA Center, the same with Cisco SD-WAN. For now, however, we just need a customized workspace, which CML will do. So I will go ahead and reserve the CML Sandbox. That'll take us through to our DevNet Sandbox, and then what we need to do over here is that we actually see I'm signed in with my original accounts. Need to log off there. What we need to do is we need to actually log in. I'll log in with my DevKey developer Google account. And you can just select your Google account that you're using. Alternatively, you can use your Cisco ID if you like. It will pop this up displaying that this is the first time you're actually using, the first time I'm registering with the DevKey developer email address. I'll just put here that I'm a student, my title, my role, engineer or developer, any which way is good. Current company I work for, and fire away and register. Okay, and that should have us logged in. So we'll go back to the networking tab again. And we'll scroll down to our Cisco Modeling Labs and select Try It Out. Once the dash is loaded, what we're going to do is basically every 24 hours, you basically get given a 4-hour time allotment onto basically how you can use your lab workspace. Now, if you think about your given workday, we all have the same 24 hours in the same workday. So given the amount of time you spend watching your videos, reading your notes, spending 4 hours on a lab is technically the most amount of time you spend on your lab in any which way, depending on the discipline or skill that you're learning. So what we need to do within this landing page or this workspace is we actually need to reserve time for the specific lab. So for the purposes of demonstrations, and because this is a shared environment, I only reserve the sandbox for a period of an hour. So you can see on top here on the top right hand corner, it's currently on a reserve status. On the top left hand corner, we have our sandbox lab. We can go ahead and select that and then select reserve. This will basically give us information in which you see basically asking us how long do we want to run the lab and or what name we'd like to give our lab as well. So I only technically need an hour. So I'll populate the time here for duration until 3:45 until 4:45. That's in UTC, so that's -2 hours in South African time. We'll just put 1 hour, easier. So I've selected the pencil icon over here, and you can select the amount of hours you'd like to use. All right, and then I'll give it the name DMVPN lab. And I'll go ahead and reserve the sandbox. What this will do is it will then send your request through to the Cisco servers, and it will, in the back end, set up your workspace environment that you originally clicked in the beginning landing page. So in this extent, it will be the CML. You can see on the top right-hand corner over here, it shows that it's currently setting up your workspace. And it will also give you a time at which the estimated end is for you to be able to log into your lab. Now, what's important to note is that once this time allotment is up, it will then send you login details on how to utilize your workspace. And you can see there it gives you a completion cycle, like a life cycle until it's complete. What's important to note, however, which I've already have pre-installed, is that you're going to need to download the Cisco AnyConnect VPN client. You can simply click on VPN access on the top right-hand section while the lab is setting up. Select it, and it will open up in a new window. You can then download it either if you're using a Mac OS or a Windows client. It will download in the bottom right-hand corner, and you simply follow the wizard next, 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 next until you finish. And if there should be any updates that are required, you go ahead and install those as well. So I'll just pause the video for now while the Sandbox is updating in the back end, and I'll see you back shortly. All right, and now we're active. So you'll see it will stipulate in the top right-hand end an active status, the amount of time you have left in the lab. So what I'm going to do is I am going to now SSH into the lab. Apologies. It's not SSHing first. What we need to do is we need to actually first pop over to our emails and sign into our AnyConnect. So I'll just go to my email address. And you'll see Cisco will have sent you an email stating that your lab is ready. And it will provide you with the username and the password for that. And it will also give you a lab network address, which we need to populate in our Cisco AnyVPN Connect. So if you'll see right on the top, you'll have the Cisco AnyConnect. If not, you can simply go ahead and type Cisco AnyConnect, and it will find it for you, and you can click on it and open it. All right, so the window will appear like this on the bottom right-hand corner of your window. Because I'm using multiple monitors, it appeared on my left monitor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the lab network address that they've provided me with, populate it into this box, which will normally be empty, paste it in there, click connect, and then it should prompt you, once you've contacted the server, to enter a username and password. We'll populate that information. Your username, your password, and that should establish your connection. Once it's connected, you can go back to your workspace. And you should now be able to either SSH into the box or open it up with HTTPS, which is what we want to do. Make sure we're connected. Okay, so I just had to refresh the page because it's now allowing me to SSH. Let's show you, refresh, and now allows me to SSH or HTTPS to the CML, Cisco Modeling Labs workspace. So it's really up to you. You could putty into it if you like, or you can use your HTTPS. I prefer the graphical user interface in this instance. So I'm going to so like I was saying, what we should do is just reload the page. Once the page has reloaded, we can then HTTPS onto our workspace. All right. Okay, so there we are. Simple as that. Select HTTPS. And that should take us to our workspace environment. And that's where we'll start firing away at our DMVPN lab. Now, what I've done is I've already pre-configured some configurations with regards to the lab itself. So with the routers that I have configured for the lab. So what I'll do is I'll configure it with you on the go. It shouldn't take too long. I'm going to refresh the page once more. Sorry about that, my internet connection. It's really a little slow today. Alright. Okay. And okay, it's prompting for the username and password again. I'll just populate that. Okay, so username and password is under the Cisco Modeling Lab. So I'll just get the username developer and I'll get the password once more. Populate that there. It should log us in. Okay, and we're back in. All right, so we're just going to, on the top right hand corner, add a lab. Save. Alrighty, so that takes us to our workspace. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of ISV routers. 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be it. This is going to be our hub router. This is going to be our ISP router. This is going to be our spoke router. And our secondary spoke router. All right. Okay, so basically this saves us a lot more time in terms of having to actually download an ISO, find the proper version of Linux or Ubuntu that you prefer, have to download or rather pay for the images from Cisco or to manually configure viral. All of this is completely free on the Sandbox. All you particularly have to do is you just register with your Cisco ID or your Gmail account as such, and you can fire away. So what I'm going to have done here is I'm just going to run these routers. Actually, the first time I'm configuring DMVPN on the Sandbox. As mentioned, it's definitely a great way for the everyday person like you and myself to actually lab up and practice such technologies without having to purchase any physical infrastructure. Okay, so a bit about the actual interfaces is it's similar to GNS3 in a lot of ways. You use GNS3. Also packet tracer to some extent, but once you're done dragging the nodes, and you'll see that there are multiple nodes. You have WAN emulators, you got servers, you have your Ubuntu servers, you have your Cisco ASAs, you got some desktops, unmanaged switches, some Nexus data center switches, CRC 1000 V routers. So, I mean, ultimately, Bob's your uncle, yeah, this is a free playground for you to go crazy. Yeah, so I mean, if we open the console on each of these, what I like to do is I like to set auto. This kind of also reminds me of the Boston software. Just again, this being completely free helps. There are some limitations to the fact that sometimes the website can run slow depending on how many people are making use of the service. So just pay attention to the load, the CPU load usage, the memory usage before you start the labs. But then again, it is better than the system resource utilization that one would occur with running the VMware or VirtualBox and such. All right, so what you'll see is once each of the routers has booted up successfully, they will have these little green ticks on them, and that will mean it's in a ready status. Okay. What we'll do over here is it will prompt you for initial system configuration dialog, like a typical router would. And what I just wanted to show you was basically my configuration template policy. This is my head office policy for my DMVPN, my ISOCAM policy, my Diffie-Hellman, I chose group 14. My type of encryption is AES. My authentication is pre-share. I'm basically allowing all the different subnets via any subnet using this wildcard for 0000, configuring, creating a tunnel interface, setting the bandwidth, IP address, MTU, the authentication, allowing spoke devices to dynamically connect to the actual hub router, configuring EGRP, configuring the Windows TCP segment size, giving it a name. And what's also important here is your tunnel key. Your tunnel keys have to match. So just bear that in mind. What I'll do as well is I'll leave a link in the description for the Cisco DMVPN best practices, whereby they have a similar DMVPN template where you can copy and you can just manipulate to your own type of lab environment. You can just go crazy with it. I've also set up ERGRP so that the networks can advertise between one another. And that's what I'll be setting up on these different profiles. The only main difference here is that on router 2, 3, and router 4, I've actually set up NHRP, which is the next hop resolution protocol, to map to our hub. Let's just call it head office site. And that it basically it's got a shortcut instead of a redirect, so that the neighborship forms ISOCAMP as well as the tunnel and the ERGRP adjacency. So let's populate this all, and then we'll have a look if it's working. So let's go ahead and start on our hub. Actually, let's go ahead and start on our, this will be our internet router. So what I find is that the external connector doesn't have enough interfaces. So I just make use of a standard hub, and we'll just call this here our internet service provider. Okay, and then we'll just Control N here. Mind you, these cogwheels are to stop, like how you would normally stop in GNS3, stop the router from all of its processes. It basically shuts it down. This is to link or to wire up the different interfaces between each of your nodes. And lastly, of course, this is to gain access to the CLI. So over here, I'm going to stipulate no. It's going to increase window size. And you'll see that it will boot just like a normal router does, until it brings us to our router prompt, whereby we can begin our configuration. While it's busy, shouldn't take too much longer. It is loading the Cisco image. Okay, you can see ISCAMP is off in terms of IPsec, and there we go. We are prompted. We have the little router dialog over here. So I'm going to do is I'm going to type in enable, and then I am going to basically configure two things here. Host name being the internet service provider. It's up to you. You can call it ISP, you can call it internet, really your prerogative. It's too long, so I'll just name it ISP. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a local interface on it. And the first local interface I'm going to create is give it an IP address. I'm going to paste my config in here. And then I'm going to configure one more local interface. And I'll just write those changes. And for now, we're done with the internet router. I'm going to move on to the hub router. So again, just simply select, click on node information. I'm going to call this head office Johannesburg. I'm going to go back into the console and type no. I'm going to wait for the boot process to occur again. Just going to pause the video while it boots up. Be with you now. Okay. Now, it's going to be a little simpler. It's head office, it's your hub router. So technically, if my configurations are correct, this should all apply without any errors. Yeah, so what? Oh, we definitely have some errors, but let's take a look here. It's due to me being unable to spell. Okay. So I'm just going to fix these spelling errors and my spelling mistakes as well. Just need to see where we ended here. So this would be at transform set modes transport. So profile VPN transfer that exists. Okay, so it's basically the first segment. Just gonna fix up my spelling errors and do it shortly. Okay, that should be if I walk through the string by string. So let's just go ahead and just copy paste. So that's our host name. Let's configure the ISCAM policy. So script ISCAM policy 1. And now we're going to put in our encryption, authentication, and Diffie-Hellman group settings. Or going through except for the last string. Not really liking that crypto there. Not wanting to populate probably the iOS V version. Just going to figure out this bug. Hold for me. Okay, seems like I needed to go out of the IceCamp policy config. Just want to make sure that everything is as it should be. Click done. IceCamp policy 1. And then to, yeah. encryption. That's it. Exit group. Lifetime. It is. Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah. Now, going to configure the transform. Let's go back. And paste that in again. So not liking it. Let me just figure this out quick. Okay. So let's see what's happening here. So it's crypto. We need to set IPsec. We need to configure the transform set. Give it a name, trans, ESP header, sharp, installation types, and lastly the HMAC. Let's not liking that too much. Sharp HMAC, authentication header. So I have a feeling I've forgotten the string here. So this would be ESP, EA, yes. Which is why I need to copy directly from the Cisco the DMVPN best practice documentation from that link which you'll see below. Okay, and now let's continue to configure the policies. So it's crypto, IPsec, profile, DMVPN. Then we're going to set the transformer set. And we're just going to write these settings. Perfect. All right. If I'm correct in saying my tunnel information should have been through, except for the authentication part. Authentication. Need to learn to spell authentication. Make sure there is no other spelling errors besides that. And it looks like it was just the authentication. I'll just reapply this. I'll exit out of the IPsec profile. Take config zone to move. And we're all done. Head office, which is our hub router, is now configured. What I'd like to do as well, before we leave here, I would like to just run a debug for our next hop resolution protocol. There we go. So this should tell us when our adjacencies are formed. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to configure our spoke routers. Oh, actually, because this is an ISP, which is just a general router, I need to configure some static IP addresses here. Okay, so I'm going to populate the static route. Just quickly added it to my listing here, so I'm just going to go back into configuration mode. Simple paste will do. Then what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to change the last offset to match each of the spoke Right, so that's 3.0, and then that's 4.0. And I'll just write the configuration there, and I'll move on to our router 2. I'm going to select no. I'm just going to pause a second while it boots up, and be with you again shortly. Alright, what I want to do as well is I want to name our Cape Town site. Cape Town. Go back into the console, and then once more, I just love the Sandbox. You do need to be careful about your time though, because as you're labbing, time just flies by. I would suggest make a mental note of the time as you go. So I'm just going to put through my configuration, yeah. Copy paste once more. Hopefully my spelling is correct this time. Authentication. There we go. Paste that in there. And that's much better. Okay. And also want to configure our EIGRP route. And lastly, we need to configure the static route to our hub site. Okay, fantastic. Obviously, once we got this directly connected, we'll verify your verification check. Let's finish up our configurations with our Delvin site. Actually thinking there was a need for one more site. Yeah. So while that's busy, I will add one more. Yeah. Fix the topology. I actually created a full 3-site stroke internet service provider. Okay. Alright, let's just get that booting, and this should be done. What I'll do while that's loading up is I'll give this Durban, and then lastly, this can be our port either site. Alright, here we are, rooted. Populate the configuration once more. Once again, make sure my spelling is correct, and then just copy over that configuration for the tunnel. Alright. And it's advertise our network. And lastly, add that static routes to the hub router. And then I'll just save that. See how we're doing on our Port Elizabeth router. Select no. That should just take a second to boot. All that's busy booting up. I'll wire us up here. This guy, just got to click and hold. Push to internet router. That will be KCOM 0 for the Durbin. Internet service provider router, big one. The KCOM internet service provider, big 0. And lastly, would be our head office router, big 0. Okay. What I need to do is just make a confirmation here. This is 601. Just make sure I selected the correct interface here. So interfaces, let's remove that link. Let's connect it up again. Just want to make sure it's passing through 01. And our port Elizabeth is utilizing port 02. I'll just remove that link. And then once again just add it to port 2. 2. Alright. Fantastic. Alright. Then I'll upload final configuration. And then we can do our validation. Alright, so I can paste once more. And then I will then need to configure tunnel. So copy my config, sure my spelling is correct. Alright, that all looks good. Copy this across. Paste that in there. Bear in mind, the purpose of this is specifically just to configure the DMVPN, which is why you don't see me configuring any sort of authentication to log onto the routers themselves. So, second last thing we need to do, populate that static route going all the way to our hub router, hub site, head office. And lastly, take an EJP advertisement. And I'll just write configuration. We can now start our testing procedure.
Alrighty, apologies for the delay there. But as you can now see, on our head office router, our ISOCOMP is on, the ISOCOMP policy is on, which is awesome. That means our IPsec policy is working. We just now have to confirm that our tunnel is up. Alright, so we should have just made it before our Sandbox finishes up, yeah. But as you can see, our ISOCOMP mode is on and we are now transmitting in HRP messages. So if I check the tunnel, show IPIT brief. Okay, the tunnel is busy resetting at the moment. Just waiting for the tunnel to re-establish, and I'm hoping that the tunnel will be able to transmit. Okay, the tunnel is busy resetting at the moment. Just waiting for the tunnel to re-establish, and I'm hoping that the tunnel will be able to transmit in HRP messages. So if I check the tunnel, show IPIT brief. Okay, the tunnel is busy resetting at the moment. Just waiting for the tunnel to re-establish, and I'm hoping that our time doesn't elapse before then. If it does, I'll leave a GitHub description below just to show you how it is all done. And yeah, it's just basically getting you started on the Sandbox. I really hope this has been informative for you. And should this come up, I'll just post another link for it. Okay, and we just about made it in time, so we will show IP brief. There we can see our tunnel is established. Alright, I hope this video was informative for you. Please leave any comments if you have any, and I'll be happy to assist you further. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.